So greetings once again and welcome back to another video. We are here in Lehigh County today, currently on the banks of what's called Leaser Lake. I'll show it to you here in a moment. It's a beautiful lake. It's actually a 4-mile trail that walks around this whole lake too. I did it a couple years ago, which is kind of the reason why I'm here today as well. As you can tell by the title of the video, we're going to be talking about the Liberty Bell. So here's a quick view of the lake. It kind of extends all the way up that way too, up near the mountain. So there's like a 4-mile trail that goes all the way around the lake. And right up there, you can see the flag up there. There's a monument up there, which I encountered when I was here several years ago, which I never knew was here. But it is related to our story today. But we will head up there in a bit and look at that monument. It's dedicated to Frederick Leaser, who was instrumental in saving the Liberty Bell. So why does the Liberty Bell need saving? Well, this is another episode in our Revolutionary War in Pennsylvania. And the Battle of Brandywine has taken place now in our series. That took place September 11th, 1777. We already did a video on that, talk about the battle and how it was a strategic loss for the colonial Continental Army. It allowed the British to move into Philadelphia. And of course, and the citizens were concerned not just for the Liberty Bell, but for other bells in the city, that they would be used to be melted down by the British and be turned into munitions and stuff like that. Well, I just saw fish jump, turned into bullets and cannonballs and stuff. And particularly the Liberty Bell, which was a symbol. I mean, Liberty Bell is one of the bells that was rung, you know, when they declared independence. So it had some symbolic meaning as well. So definitely the British would have melted it down. So there was an effort to save that bell plus some of the other bells in the city, keep them from falling into British hands, like them being turned into weapons against the colonial. So the two men we're going to talk about today, the two men that were instrumental in moving the Liberty Bell, there was a whole caravan of wagons that the bells were loaded on and moved out of the area. The two men are Jacob Mikley. That should sound familiar. We did a video on him kind of in our French and Indian War series. And then the other fellow is Frederick Leaser, who the monument up here is for. So they were both instrumental in moving the Liberty Bell away from Philadelphia and up here to the Bethlehem and Allentown area, which we'll be headed to in a little bit. Let's head up there and read the monument. Maybe we'll take another look at the lake first too. Beautiful spot. Yeah, I need to come back here, hike that trail again. Number of people here fishing and stuff. It's a beautiful spot. You can take boats out, kayaks. All right, so let's head up here to the monument. Like I said, I would never have known this monument was here. I would never have known that this monument was here if I could talk, unless I had hiked this trail. I never knew about it. Kind of sparked my interest in this story about the Liberty Bell. And I knew I would cover it in my Revolutionary War series at some point then. Yeah, here we go. Nice monument here. Frederick Leaser, whose homestead is located 1 mile to the north. In September of 1777, with his farm team hauled the Liberty Bell from Philadelphia to Allentown, where it was concealed in Zion Reformed Church. Has some other information. His grandson Jesse Fulwiler conveyed on the same wagon the Liberty pole erected on this spot. It bore the legend Jackson, Liberty, and against nullification. Let me just bring that part about the Liberty pole. I don't think the Liberty pole is here anymore, but I don't think it's this one right here. But yeah. Cool monument though. Yes, like I said earlier, I never knew that was here. Never knew about the name Frederick Leaser until I walked this trail. So that's kind of cool how you can learn about stuff just by making other videos too. Alright, so we're going to head to the grave of Jacob Mikley, which we've actually been to before. His family was involved in a massacre against them by the Native Americans during the French and Indian War. So some of his siblings were killed in that massacre, but we did a video on that some time ago. Maybe actually just last summer, we found his grave. I think there's an inscription there about the Liberty Bell as well. So I think we'll drive over that way. We're in Lehigh County. Now we're going to head over into Northampton County, I think, along Route 145 to that cemetery, if I can find it again. But I'll take you along with me. Maybe I'll talk a little more about it as we drive along. And eventually we'll make our way into Allentown and try and find that church. All right, so like I said, we're gonna head over to John Jacob Mikley's grave near, it's north of Allentown. The Mikley, I forget, is it United Methodist Church or Church of Christ? Like I said, we were there before. Yeah, the Liberty Bell was first on Mikley's wagon, and I think taken to Bethlehem first, but his wagon broke down in Bethlehem, and it was transferred to Frederick Leaser's wagon, where it was brought to Allentown, just next door. And it was stored under the floorboards of that church, the Zion German Reformed Church, I believe it was called. And it stayed under the floorboards of that church for 9 months, from September of 1777 till June of 1778. June of 78 is when the British moved out of Philadelphia. So for 9 months. Not sure where they took the other bells, probably in similar locations. And the bell was not, the Liberty Bell is known for being cracked. It was not cracked during this transport. I think I remember being told that when I was younger, learning about the Liberty Bell, that it was, you know, in the rush to save it from being captured by the British, it was, you know, dropped from a wagon or something, it was cracked. But from my research, it did not get that crack from this war, or being, you know, transported up to this area. It was cracked like later in maybe the early 1800s or something like that. At least I feel like I remember being taught that when I was younger. Alright, but we got a little ways to go yet. We're currently on Route 143, if you're familiar with the area. I'm going to head to Route 309 and start making our way over towards the north of Allentown area. I just want to emphasize too that there was a whole convoy of wagons. It wasn't just one wagon, you know, carrying a Liberty Bell. Like I said, they were taking multiple bells out of the city to keep them out of the British hands. So there was a whole convoy. It wasn't just Mikley and Leaser, but they're the ones that are best known because it was their wagons that actually carried the Liberty Bell. Unfortunately, history doesn't really remember the other men. There have been, you know, soldiers guarding and things like that. I do like the commanding officer. His I think his last name was Polk. I have that written down somewhere. The one in charge of the convoy. And both these men were also involved. They were part of the Pennsylvania militia at this time as well. Alright, so we have made it to the cemetery where John Jacob Mikley is buried. Right across the way is the church. I think it's Mikley's UCC church. I want to be a little more quiet. There's some kind of a service going on up here. But the grave we're looking for is right here. It's got a flag light up there. Yeah, I found this grave. Oh, someone's flag blew away here. Try and correct that in a bit. But yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, I found this when I did that video on the Mikley family massacre during the French and Indian War. We had found their grave. Yeah, here it is. That's our man right there, John Jacob Mikley. There's the father. These are the 3 sons and 1 daughter that survived the massacre. I think there was another daughter and another son that didn't. Here he is, John Jacob Mikley, 1737 to 1808. Let's go grab that flag though. Not sure what we can do with it. Well, I just rolled it up and wrapped it around another one of those little flag posts. It tore off, so there's no way for me to put it back on, but at least there it's a little bit more respectful spot, so, but yeah. Cool history. If you remember our conversation, it was Mikley's wagon that brought the Liberty Bell from Philadelphia up to Bethlehem, just over the way, but then his wagon broke and the Liberty Bell was transferred to Leaser's wagon. Leaser was already in the convoy. Like I said, there was a number of wagons in the convoy. But since both of them helped to carry the Liberty Bell up this way, they both get recognized for it. Alright, but now, oh yeah, I was going to say too, I just think it's neat how on two separate other videos I did, I came into contact with this history. Like when I hiked around Leaser Lake and came across the monument to Leaser, and then when I did this video on the Mikley family massacre, I learned about them as well, how they were instrumental in saving the Liberty Bell. Just find that interesting. Alright, but now we're going to hop back into the Jeep. Probably the most stressful part of this drive will be trying to get a view of that church. This German Zion Reformed Church. I'm not going to park anywhere in Allentown. The parking there is I couldn't find any free parking. Looking on Google Maps and everything, all the street views, everything's either private or you need a permit to park. Or you got to go in a parking garage. I don't want to pay for a parking garage but only film for a couple minutes. But I think I found a way to get a good view of the church. We're going to go down one of the alleyways and it comes out. The church is on Hamilton Street, 622 Hamilton Street, but I think by coming down to one alleyway, Church Street, comes out into Hamilton, I think we'll get a beautiful front view of the church. I think that'll work, as long as we can find those roads we need. So let's hop back in the Jeep and see if we can find this church, where the Liberty Bell was kept safe for 9 months from the British under the floorboards. Yes, now we're headed down 145 into downtown Allentown. This should be fun. The church is on Hamilton Street, Blake, so I'm going to turn on to, I think it's called Turner Street, and go down like an alleyway called Church Street. We'll see how this works out. Alright, we have made it to Church Street. I think I just saw the steeple of the church here a moment ago. Well, I can see the edge of it up there. So I think this will work out. Yeah, just up ahead, you can start to see it on the edge right there. Oh yeah, right here it is. That is the church right there. Wow, right on Hamilton Street. Look at that. No one's behind me, so we can look at this a little bit here. Yeah, look at that. Tall spire. That's where the Liberty Bell was kept. That is cool. Wow, alright. Well, we're back home now. I made it out of downtown Allentown. It was chaotic. There's a lot going on there. It would have been nice to find a place back by the church to park and take a closer look, but like I said, parking just wasn't going to happen. Like, I guess, like everything here was like private or by permit or all kinds of stuff like that. But anyway, it worked out. We got to see a nice frontal view of the church where the Liberty Bell was kept for like about 9 months there until June of 1778. That'll be it for this video, folks. A little bit of history on the Liberty Bell and its escape from Philadelphia during the British occupation and its eventual return. So thanks for coming along, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.